Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. We've got my man, Seahawks Brendon Nelson, back in the house, returning again, making his epic return. Brendon, it's always epic when you're returning. How you doing, my guy?
I'm doing good tonight, man. Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me on once again.
Have you fallen asleep yet on your keyboard, grinding through rookie film yet?
It's not easy. It's not
Yeah,
easy. There's a lot of it takes it out of you. There's a lot of stuff to look at, a lot of stuff to break down. You got to read a lot of stuff too. It's not just watching the tape. You got to
yeah,
read what other people have said, and you got to cross-reference that with what other people have said, and then you got to. It's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So
yeah.
it's fun. You only do it once a year, but
It is. It's a unique thing like that. It's different from even watching or covering football. You're actually just going, player by player, and boy, your eyes can glaze over. But also, it's fun too because you get excited when you see those guys pop up. That, oh my God, that's yes, here we go. This is a guy that I would love to have on my team. I really like what I'm seeing from this guy. This is something that would fit with what we need, and I think he's got some star potential even. We're going to dwell today, folks. We're going to go through mainly kind of the second tier pass rushers. We've already talked about the frontline guys. So we're going to go into more of the
mhm.
second tier pass rushers, edge slash defensive end slash, let's just call it the guys rushing from the outside. And we're also going to look at some of the middle linebackers here on this show and just target on, again, these specific guys. And then kind of go through this as we've looked at the offensive side of the ball over on Brendon's channel. And if you're not subscribed, please go to Seahawks Brendon Nelson's channel and subscribe over there as we do this every other week on each other's channel.
Yeah, I can't lie though, Brandon. I'm a little disappointed we're not doing an hour and a half on us tendering Penny Hart.
Well, I know there's a lot to debate there, Brennan. I know you're going to pound the mat for Penny, and I know you were going to talk about contract extensions, and then I was going to counter with him as a trade bargaining chip, and it was going to get fierce. You know what I mean?
hmm
It was.
God, I thought that would be one of the upshots of moving on from Wilson. We could move on from Hart too, but no.
I guess they see that untapped potential there, man. I don't know, or they just like to have two guys on the roster named Penny at the same time, and there's something about that they find interesting. I guess. We'll see if he makes the
Uh,
roster. I mean, I'm
yeah,
hoping they get a better option, but sadly I think we're going to probably just ride with what we got with our wide receiver core right now. We may get a guy in this draft. Do you think this is a little off topic? We hadn't set the show up with this, but I don't think we're probably going to target a receiver in this draft. Do you?
I got a couple guys who are on my radar, but they're all day three guys in all likelihood. So not really, no. I'm just hoping that Cade Johnson beats him out for real. That would be great for me.
Yeah.
Wide receiver 5 Cade.
He's got talent. He's got talent. He would go probably in this draft, I think, somewhere fourth, fifth round. He certainly wouldn't have gone undrafted, I think, if he was in this draft versus maybe last year's draft. I like the receiver talent, but just he would have been, I think he'd been more competing up in the upper, not upper level, but at least, again, be drafted, which he wasn't last year. And he's got a lot of talent. Real quick status check here before we get into these second grade rushers, and we don't have to dwell very long on it, Brendan. But the road to the draft is always this winding up and down road that leads you through a variety of different realities of this guy's going to get taken, that guy's going to get taken. We're hearing more background chatter stuff that I think has a little bit behind it at this point, Brendan, where guys that are tapped into the background that have their sources are operating from a point of knowledge that, especially at the top end of the draft, in my opinion, there's not as much to necessarily begin when they're not quarterbacks and showing your hand. If you like a Hutchinson guy in Jaguars #1 overall, you're not really going to play a lot of cloak and dagger with it. I'm hearing right now it stands with what I'm reading on this is that we are looking at the potentiality right now, a very feasible potentiality of 4 pass rushers going in the top 9 picks: Hutch, Thibodeau, Walker, and Jermaine Johnson, all going in the top 4 by what I'm hearing. I'm also hearing a good chance that there's 3 tackles taken in that top 9 as well.
Mhm.
What are you hearing about right now as far as everything kind of happening up in front of us?
I'm starting to get the sense that Thibodeau may fall, and I'm not saying that just because I like him. There are actually some players I like more than Thibodeau, but I've heard some things that apparently his occasional lack of effort is costing him a little bit. I think he's a little bit of an injury risk, not a huge one or anything, but I think he was playing through an injury in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
I think Thibodeau could fall, but he would be the only guy. To me, okay, I should take that back. To me, Hutchinson and now Walker are going to go in that top 8 for sure. Because
Right.
suddenly Walker's just come out of nowhere to become this primo prospect. I don't totally know how. I mean, he's a Georgia defensive end. Like, do you know how easy it is to play on that defense surrounded by all these all-American players? So I don't know where it came from, but apparently Walker might go number 1 overall, which to me is crazy, but there it is. I remember, I'm old enough to remember the Reggie Bush draft, where for months and months and months and months, everyone said, oh, of course Reggie Bush is going number 1 overall to Houston. Of course. And then the night before, Mario Williams just comes in off the top rope. So I've seen it happen before. So
it does. Have you seen, can you remember a guy like this with Walker? You've watched a bit of tape on him, but can you remember a guy like this elevating at the late hour of the evaluation process like he has, without, again, they're making the excuses. He was in the B gap the whole career, the whole year in college, so he didn't get to just do his full pass rush stuff. And then he's such an elite athlete. But to see a guy without that production being vaulted this fast, I can't really. There's probably been one. Maybe we go back to the kid from Oregon that was drafted a few years ago that we ended up having on the team for a year.
Deion Jordan.
Deion Jordan. Maybe that's the last guy I can think of in this realm. But can you think of anybody that's been jumped up this high from where they were projected? Pretty decently into the process as people were still evaluating. Where maybe top 15. Now he's number 1 overall. My goodness.
I mean, we see it with quarterbacks sometimes, right? Like sometimes it happens with quarterbacks, but that's because every team is so quarterback hungry if they don't have one. Maybe like, God, I don't remember how he was being talked about before, but maybe like a Derek Brown. I didn't expect him to go in the top 10, and then he did.
Good point. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
I think when these guys flash out in the post-draft process, sometimes, again, this is the rule of thumb you got to learn at times, or everyone should learn, is that you don't get caught up too much into the post process. Go back and do trust the film. Don't get caught up. Man, he looks really good. He jumps through the roof and all that. And maybe this Walker thing's just them showing how good they are as talent evaluators, where he gets the second level, Brendon. And he does special trade. He can jack a guy up. I mean, he can take a guy and, lift him right up off his feet that weighs 320 pounds and do it effortlessly, but not a lot of pass rush ruse and a lot of stunting from the inside. And I don't know. We'll see with him on that. Where we want to get to today, though, Brendon, is, we're going to dive into these pass rushers. Both you and I believe at this point, I think pretty firmly, we got Darrell Taylor locking down the left side, which he wants to rush from. We need now that blind side guy, and preferably a blind side guy that can stand up in a 3-4 alignment. And there are a lot of good second tier guys here. I think you'd agree, Brendon. This might be the deep. Would you say the deepest component of the draft for you in this margin?
It's either this or cornerback, and cornerback mostly because I don't know if we're doing man or zone this year, so I have to evaluate every corner. I can't just dismiss half of them because they're best in man, because for the first time in 100 years, we might run a lot of man. It's hard to know, but it's either that or corner. Yeah.
I was thinking too of how exciting it would be if this team bringing on Desai could get into Carroll's ear, and Hurt could get into Carroll's ear and say, why don't we do this? We have Trey Brown. We go get a man corner in this draft, and then we're still rocking Sidney Jones on the roster with Artie Burns. What if we do some flip stuff, right? Depending on the opponent, on who gets maybe a few more snaps this week, on whether we play a little more zone to man this week, and we actually operate off of attacking the weaknesses of an opposing offense and have it in our personnel groupings, because we don't just have a bunch of zone guys or just a bunch of man guys. We have a little bit of a mix there. Would be kind of interesting if they're looking to turn over that kind of leaf. It'd be far from where they've gone in the past.
Yeah, and I think that does open up the possibility of us drafting Stingley, but that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that edge is right up there with cornerback for me in this draft. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and very exciting. These are exciting prospects. These aren't guys that are just pure Rasheem Green, 20-year-old developmental guys. They're guys with already some tools to work with that could be pretty productive right out the gate. And I think it's not to be undersold, Brendon, giving them the opportunity to come into this team and rush from the blind side as opposed to that strong side, which Darrell Taylor prefers. So it's so much of a more usually favorable position for pass rushers, because you're not doing the dirty work of the strong side where you're taking on tight ends, or you're really getting doubled. Sometimes you're having to set the edge a lot. You're just usually being able to run wild and free, especially with how we used to do the Leo in this defense, where we just go hunt, So some really exciting guys. Who do you have at the top of your list? Because as we talked about we talked Thibodeau, Johnson, Walker. Who do you got as kind of your top now tier? Let's call them tier 2 guys of pass rushers right out the gate.
Right. So past that top 4, like Hutch, Thibs, or apparently, by the way, it's pronounced Thibodeau, not Thibodeau.
Oh my God.
So we're going to have to learn that if we draft him, I guess.
I know. The B
yeah,
is silent. The B is silent.
Johnson and Walker. The first guy that I'm really looking at, and we're going to have a real conversation about this one, is David Ojabo from Michigan. So you were all over this guy at number 9 a couple months ago.
Yeah.
You were like, this might be the guy at number 9 because he's going to get so much better because he's barely played any football. He's already showcasing great football IQ despite his lack of experience. He's good against the run. He's got such high potential. He had 12 tackles for loss and 11 sacks and 5 forced fumbles in his only full year of college football. And then he tore his Achilles. So here's what I'm thinking. I think it's safe to say that he's at least going to fall into like the late first round. And then he might fall into the early second round. If you come around to your second round pick and he is still there, because teams are just staying away because he's probably going to miss 2022.
Right.
Are you biting on that one? Because I would have a very hard time saying no, but I'm aware of the fact that it took Sidney Jones like 18 years to come back from his.
I think you touched on exactly the reasoning here. And this is maybe I'm not a doctor, and this is only a gut feeling on the situation. It feels like the ACLs are easier to come back from than the Achilles. And you mentioned Sidney Jones, who has suffered the Achilles on his pro day, and I think is just starting really athletically to round back into where maybe the near shape of where he was in college. I think it's not just an injury that you're talking about 1 year, we're talking 2 years. And he might get back on the field in a year from now. But to get back at nearly the same sort of quickness and twitchiness and have that speed, say nothing of the chance for re-injuring, which is also there now and an added component here, I would push it down 1 round because of that extra. And I would go to the 3rd round. If it was ACL, Brendon, I'd be with you. I'd be all on board with you if this was a torn ACL. But I think the Achilles are just a different type of animal. And I think that it does rob you of something. I don't think you come back 100% of what you were off of an Achilles. I've yet to hear a player say so in that respect.
Yeah, okay. So you think it's possible Ojabo's there at our 3rd round pick?
I do, because now I think somebody's going to take him in the 2nd round, Brendon, but I think it'll be mid to late 2nd round. So you're right. You're right on that track, because let's face it, we've got a baseline of just like we have. If I got a baseline, I'll operate off of it. Sidney Jones gives us a baseline. He would have been picked probably lower, even if he was fully healthy, than where Ojabo was slotted to go, which would make Ojabo the better prospect. So that does push him to me to a 2nd round. But I just can't. I'd rather, if there wasn't as deep a draft for pass rushers, other options here that were good there for that 2nd round, I might bite as well. But because there's so many other juicy options here, it's hard to pull that trigger for me in the 2nd round because of that.
Okay.
He's legitimate. Fair. He's your talent. What you spoke about is talents. Not only playing 2 years of college football. Sorry to interrupt you. Only playing college 2 years of college football. Pure fit for 3-4. I said my comparison for him was Chandler Jones, and Chandler being a guy that is very much a pass rush repertoire guy, but this guy's got that same kind of bend and ability to kind of just pattern change his pass rush moment to moment on how he does, and just a natural feel for what he's doing out there. Love him in that angle of it, but he is reliant on that dip and bend and first step quickness, which is part of the things that'll get robbed by the injury.
Yeah, it's too bad. He got very, very unlucky, Your pro day, you've already set the combine on fire. You're good. Everyone loves you. You're going to be a 1st round pick, and then
I hate that drill. Your pro day? I hate that drill they had him run. You see that stupid ass drill they had him run, where he goes backwards and he's on the field turf, which we already know the field turf monster takes out lower leg injuries like nobody else. So they have the linebacker dropping back, and then he's got to cut forward and then catch a football. And I look at that drill and I go, the risk you put the player in that moment, and he's trying to impress. First, you don't have this on the film. You can't see this on the film and make a determination off of that. Isn't this what your job is to do? I don't. It's one of those ones I see him do, and I go, that doesn't look as much a natural movement as they're trying to replicate on the football field with what they're having them do there, And I think it's a little different when you're having them do it in shorts and whatever. So, but yeah, that's a brutal turn of fate for that kid, especially if he falls to the 3rd round when he could have been a top 1st, and no guarantee he's going to get that 2nd contract with the injury. Who's your number 2?
All right. Next up is a guy who I do think we're going to heavily target if he's available in the 2nd round. It's Boy Mafe from Minnesota. Very interesting guy. 6'4", 261 pounds. Ran a 4.53 40. Didn't play a ton of football at Minnesota, still has a lot of growth he can do, still can get a lot better. Most recent season had 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. The big boards are pretty much in harmony on him. He's a second round pick in the first half, going to go somewhere between 33 and 50. So he's excellent in space. He's not somebody who just needs to have his hand in the dirt all the time. He's very explosive. He's got powerful hands, slides off blocks. He's just going to need some time. He's just going to need some time to develop because, let's face it, he didn't play a ton of football in his life. It's kind of like Ojabo all over again. So I really like Mafe. I've really fallen in love with this guy.
I do too. There's a lot to like in his game. He's your slide off the block comment. It was on point. Not only does he slide off, he's got this weird ability, Brendan, where he slides off and then gains a yard of separation after sliding off. So he gets up to the arc, the tackle meets him at the arc, hands rip down, and then he's sort of bouncing forward as he's ripping the hands down, while the lineman is sort of still just trying to anchor down and root on him in that moment. And then he gets past and gets to the quarterback. And it's just a natural movement he's got in his game. I don't know if anybody even taught him, if he just figured out how to do it and he's just gone to it. But he's got some surprising power. You mentioned his size. I think he's one of like only 3 or 4 guys in that same component of 6'4", 260, running the 4. So he's in those special range of guys in this draft with the size measurables, along with the explosion, quickness, speed metrics that he brings to play. And like you said, he's a raw guy, but he's a guy with a lot of upside. Next year when I do this, Brendan, I'm going to put this like a star rating on them, which is it's almost sort of like the ceiling star rating where, you put a guy and you go, okay, he's a 3rd round guy, and you have another guy you have in the 3rd round. But this other guy, though you have him in the 3rd round, is a guy with a lot of star potential. Maybe you'd have 8 stars out of 10 potential, whereas this other guy in the 3rd round is more of a high floor guy who's like 4 stars. I think it would better illustrate that out. And both with Ojabo and Mafe, those are both star. You're picking those in the 2nd round. You're going for star potential, I think, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And the fact that we need some time, he's going to need some time to develop, is fine by us. We're not exactly trying to win a Super Bowl right now. So that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's I'm okay with waiting on development. It's the injury one I'm worried about. I'm perfectly fine if he needs to just refine his technique and get down on that.
So if we spend 40 or 41 on him, I'm pretty happy. I'll put that out there right now. That would be one of my prime round 2 targets.
Agreed with you on there. And real quick here before we bounce to the next one, just make sure we got a dono from Paydirt Sports Card. Thank you for the $10 donation, Paydirt. Says, and we didn't address this at the top. I wanted to wait because I did see his dono in here. He says, if Sauce or Stingley falls to number 9, does Pete and John select one of them or trade down? I'm gonna put it. You get a lead with this one, Brendan, because this is tough. Because we did acknowledge, Brendan, I'm gonna buy you some time. We acknowledged that we had 4 pass rushers taken. Probably there's a good likelihood we see 3 tackles. That means there's 7 picks inside of our 9, which means one of those 2 cornerbacks then falls to us if that's the reality of the situation.
Well, I would like to remind you that Carolina's basically already shown their hand that they're going to take a quarterback. So I don't think you're going to necessarily see that. In fact, I think I can't remember his name. It might be Fitterer, the Carolina GM, basically said we need a quarterback. Sam Darnold was punching the air somewhere after hearing that one, like just complete disregard for the fact they just traded a 2nd and 3rd round pick for him. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody fell there that would be really appealing. But I definitely think we would take Sauce. I'm not sure about Stingley, but I think it's very possible. We've learned recently that Stingley was playing through a Lisfranc injury last year, which is why he didn't look as good. So that's probably going to help make Stingley be a realistic pick.
Yeah, Stingley did himself a lot of favors to that pro day yesterday, didn't he? He got himself back up into contention from maybe a little bit of a dipping or falling. So you think Pete and John would go Sauce versus they've got to pick, let's say, if drop to 15, pick up a late 2nd round. I mean, like borderline 3rd round pick.
Yeah, that's tough. It depends on who you're targeting at 15. Are you targeting Linderbaum? Are you targeting George Karlaftis? I mean, we know that Pete and John have never taken a cornerback high in the draft, but maybe this is the offseason when they start to do things a little bit differently. And Sauce is so perfect, it's hard for me to believe Pete would have him there and then turn him down. But by the way, I don't think he's going to be there. I think the Giants are getting him with one of those 2 picks.
I tend to think so as well. I've thought Sauce has done enough in this post-draft process to get himself up into the top above our realm of it. But I think if Sauce is there, I think we probably pull the trigger. If Stingley's there, I think we probably trade back. Though I think they like Stingley a lot too. I just think that they would. The Sauce, to Brendan's point on this, I think Carroll just sees he sees a mirror of Sherman, but faster. I really think that, and I think that ends up drawing that. Thank you though, Pater, for the donation, man. And we'll see how it plays out. We are getting a more of a certain path here. And I hadn't heard that about Carolina, by the way, Brendan. I was already just reading a story today about them saying they're not going to probably draft a quarterback because they want to, the owners mandated they get a superstar quarterback. That's these men who wants a superstar. So I mean, but maybe that it makes sense that they would. It's a need. Yeah. You know what I mean? It is a need.
Yeah. I mean, 'tis the season for smokescreens, right?
It is, man. It is hard to say at this point, what is what. And Vank88, thank you for the $4 donation super sticker. Appreciate you on that, buddy. All right. Well, let's get to back on your list there. Got a little bit off track on it, but let's bounce in. We've gotten a couple of very talented guys at the top of this list with a few questions for various different reasons. What we got next here? I have a feeling a little more.
I've got Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State, linebacker U. 6'2", 250 pounds, 4.6540, so a little bit slower than the previous two guys. He had 2 productive seasons at Penn State, including 2021, where he had 18 tackles for loss and 9.5 sacks. The big boards pretty much all have him in that same range of going in the top half of the second round. So you're looking at using one of your second round picks on him as it stands. So Ebiketie, the thing that really sticks out in my mind with him is the stuff he did at the combine as it regarded to coverage. He really showed that he can, as an outside linebacker in a 3-4, cleanly drop back into coverage and do all the things that you need to do to be successful in that regard. He's fast off the edge. He's great attacking the backfield. He should be able to use his speed to immediately leave an impact as a pass rusher. If you get him, you are looking at a guy who should be able to rack up 7+ sacks as a rookie if you play him enough. Now, initially, I think you're going to have to keep his role simple. You're just going to have to put him on the field and just go get the ball. Going to keep it nice and simple for him. He does need to get a little better against the run, but Ebiketie would be the last guy in my tier 2 of edge players.
I like him a lot too. I like as well when you have a young pass rusher who's got let's say, great bend and good quickness off the snap, but then as a counter. So tackle takes him away at the edge of the arc. And now what's your counter? Sometimes it could be hand fighting, like with Mafe. He can disengage the blocker's hands really seamlessly. With this kid, he's the cross face killer, Brendan. I've talked about with this kid. He's a guy that at will, if he decides he wants to get inside on you as a tackle and he's going to get inside, he is going to get inside. And there's almost nothing you can kind of do about it. And that means that he has a counter now when that tackle oversets to the outside and gets a little bit too wide. Bam, he comes right back, snaps inside on you. And that to me allows for him to have maybe a little bit more early production early on in his career, Brendan, and rather than, refining out those traits you talked about while still giving you a little bit of production from the pass rush side of things.
Right. He was a guy I was initially put off of a little bit because I don't think he did a lot of outside linebacker stuff at Penn State, but his work at the combine, he looked like a guy who can move in space and play in coverage. So I was pretty much sold at that point.
Nice. Yeah, I like this tape a lot too. He's a pretty again, the guy I don't think we were talking about that star quotient with a Jabo or Mafe. I don't know if he's got as much the star quotient, but he might have a little bit of the higher floor to him as well. And you're going to get a guy that should be a pretty proficient pass rusher for you. From the jump and remain so. Only improve upon that. When he gets in here.
Right. And that's it for my tier 2. There's maybe one other guy who's kind of between tier 2 and tier 3. We could move on to him next. But for me, those are the guys I would target at 40 and 41. Okay. So is there anybody you would be excited to target at that range that I didn't bring up?
The only guy and it wasn't on our list with it, and I forgot it up until just this moment, was the Marvin Leal of Texas A&M.
Really? You think he's an edge?
I think he's an edge. I think he could play both for you. I think he's a little bit of that Michael Bennett tweener style body style to him, which they found a purpose for once before. I think they could find a purpose for once again. I just like his game as much as anything else. And I think he can fit into a variety of different places. I think he's a problem one-on-one. He didn't necessarily test amazingly. I'll say that. But if you go and just turn on the tape of him, he's constantly popping. Go watch the Ole Miss Texas A&M game, and he's giving Coral fits. And that's everything. I watched probably 3 or 4 games with him. Every one of them, he was sub near dominant in the games I watched, and that sort of has brought me over to him. And I don't think you're putting him as a again, especially I think we're doing hybridized stuff as well. I don't think you just would have him as a 3 tech or as a 3-4 defensive end or just as a stand-up guy. You could have him kind of, I think, doing a lot of those different things. He might struggle to stand up a little bit, but again, I think this team's still going to run 30-40% of their snaps out of 4-3. I don't think we're going 80-90% 3-4 as we go into this season and making it that far of a transition. We'll use it a lot, but just not every single play.
Okay, I hear that. I did look a little bit at Leal, but I did not think of him as like an outside linebacker. But you're probably right about that. We'll see how much we stick with the new 3-4. It's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, you're right on that. I don't know that I think you're right. I don't think he's a stand-up guy. I don't think that's going to necessarily work well for what he does. So I'm completely with you on that one, 100%.
All right, so my next guy, this is kind of like the top of tier 3, would be Drake Jackson, the USC Trojan. This is another guy who slots in very well at outside linebacker in a 3-4, 6'3", 254 pounds, ran a 4.540, although it was not at the combine, so I think it was at like a USC practice, so it's unofficial.
Mm-hmm.
His best season was probably in 2019 when he had 11.5 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks. Obviously, the Pac-12's been a little messy since then because they basically had 2020 canceled. And then I think he missed some games in 2021. But on the back of his production of 2019 and somewhat 2021, pretty much every big board has him in the mid to late second round. Draft Network has him third round. You are probably looking at like a late second round guy. He's a good athlete. He's really good at chasing down plays from behind. He can set the edge pretty well against the run. He uses his speed and bend very well as a pass rusher. And he's excellent in coverage. Like USC was, I think, putting him against wide receivers in the slot sometimes because he could handle it. It was weird, but they could do it. He is a little bit weak. He can get stuck or swallowed up by blockers sometimes. And he mostly wins on athleticism, needs to work on his technique. But Drake Jackson, if we traded down to a lower second round pick, would definitely be on my list.
And Brendon, we've got a lot, especially older Seahawks fans here that have their share of now. They're going to see PST. They're going to be a little traumatized by the Seahawks in prior years going out there for those defensive ends out of USC. Man, they look snazzy. They look fast. They're like those cars look good on the outside, but once you get underneath the hood, it's like, oh my God. DeMarcus Lawrence, man. With DeMarcus Lawrence, we take, I think, in the first round at one point. Total washout, total bust. Defensive end from USC. Then we've got, of course, Rasheem Green, who's now still remains a free agent out there, despite posting a career high in sacks this last year. People are going to have visions of this with Drake coming out of USC. I will say with this, though, he's a better player. He's a different player. There is a little bit of the Rasheem thing here, though, Brendon. I think you'd agree, where you're getting a guy very talented, very raw. Mm-hmm. And I think that that aspect of it for me does make me a little hesitant when I look at that in the second round. There's some guys here that we can say with a certain rawness, like Mafe, for instance, but Mafe's got this whole explosive quotient to his game as far as potential goes. And I think Drake's got potential, but to me, he's got potential to become what I was thinking Rasheem Green was going to become, or, which was basically Everson Griffith 2.0, a guy that'll get you 8 to 10 sacks a year and be solid as a run defender, be an all around good edge player for you, not sensational or a star in any one area, but just a solid all around good guy. I don't know if I want to wait 2 years to get to that point. I'll wait for a star. I'll wait for a guy to tap into that. But do you want to wait for a couple years on a guy that's just going to round out at the end of the point where he's going to round out to being just pretty good, and then you got to pay him?
Yeah, okay. Not that this would change the pay part, but what if it's a third round pick? Does your math change?
That's
fall to the third.
That's where I have him slotted. To me, he's an early third rounder. He's like top of the third rounder / maybe back of the second round. But I think that the fact that There is a little rawness to his game still. It's not as refined as I'd like. And I don't think I've got that star potential aspect with him. I think he's going to round into a very good player. He'll help your defense out. But I want star potential in the second round myself, Brendon.
Okay. Another guy in that tier 3 zone, and this guy's probably more of a pure third round guy based off the big boards. Nick Bonito from Oklahoma ran a 4.5440 despite weighing almost 250. So he's got size and speed. Had 3 pretty productive seasons at Oklahoma, including a 9-sack season and a 7-sack season the last 2 years. He's a great fit for a hybrid defense. Overall, he's an outstanding athlete. A lot of speed off the edge. He's got good variety to his pass rush moves, high motor, good motor, pretty good against the run as well, and he proved he could do a little bit of coverage. The only issue that I really found with Bonito is that he isn't that strong, and it's possible that he might be more of a Sam linebacker in a 4-3 than outside in a 3-4. That's the only thing I saw that I didn't love, but if we are truly running a hybrid, we can find a use for him in that role as well.
Yeah, I think you summed it up really well, and especially the final comments there about him being really a Sam. I projected him out as a Sam. He ran strong side for Oklahoma and just did a fantastic job of setting the edge over there when he was taking on tight ends. Versus, okay, I've got him across from a tackle. What's that going to look like now in one-on-one type situations if I got him in a 3-4 stand-up? I do believe he can do it. So I don't want to lead the impression that it's not in his game to do it. I think he can do it. He's got a nice little spin move to his game. Good bend off the edge, pretty good quickness. He's at 4.54 at the combine, which was pretty darn fast, man. That is smoking fast for a guy that we're talking on the edge at 6'3". So he's got some good traits to his game. Not a lot of technician stuff in his hands. Not a lot of different moves outside of that spin move that he would go to, sort of just trying to round to the bend every time and beat the guy to the edge all the time, which that's all he sort of had. He could drop in his zone though. Again, to your point, do some 3-4 stuff, can drop in his zone a little bit, shows some proficiency there. Also did a good job, Brendon, of the spiral. So, you got the quarterback, they're going against a mobile quarterback. He's the guy locked on to stay with that quarterback and not let him get away. And I thought he did a good job when they would put him in that role as well.
Okay. Yeah, so we're kind of seeing the similar things with him. This next guy is really a size and speed freak. It is Sam Williams of Ole Miss. So listen to this. 261 on the scale, 4.4640 time. You don't see that very often. You don't. And 2021, he had his breakout year, 15 tackles for loss, 12 and a half sacks, and most of the big boards have him either in the 3rd round or the 4th round. So he's going to go around that area. So he's got great straight line ability. If you just put him with him standing there and the ball carriers there, he's going to go get him. Really good at that kind of stuff. He's strong against the run. He's great chasing down plays from behind. He's got some versatility to him. He has strength and speed in spades. The main concerns with Sam Williams and why he isn't maybe a 1st-round pick, I don't know about his agility. Like, he's great in a straight line, but when it comes to, like, changing directions and stuff like that, it's not so great. Like, I don't have a 3-cone time for him or a shuttle time for him. If he did those drills, I'm willing to bet he wouldn't have done amazing. And once he kind of gets – one thing I kind of noticed is when he got pushed out of the play, he struggled to get, like, second effort pressure. It's like, a basketball player who's really good at getting like second effort baskets. Yeah. He doesn't get a lot of second effort pressure, I guess you would say.
Right. I'm going to surprise you with this one. This is one of those rare ones that's going to come across the board, and I'm going to have it higher than mocks have him. I like you was watching a deep amount of his tape last night. I've been meaning to get around to him, and I saw you had him on my list. I was like, I can't believe it's taking me this long from what I've heard about him. I'm going to give you a number, 1.6. That is his 10-yard split out of the 40, and as important a metric for any pass rusher as you will find in the game. And if you're 1.6, that's pretty elite, especially when you're talking about a guy that's 6'4". He also comes in with 33 and 1 inch long arms, which are of course very important. You want to see the 33 inch long and up. A lot of times these guys will have a little bit of the shorter arms on that realm. Let me assuage some of your fears on the 3 cone. I know that there's not, though he didn't do the shuttle, didn't do any of that, so hard to see on that. I think he has as good a bend just about in this draft as just about anybody that I've seen on tape. His ability to rip to bend is darn near special at times. I think you point out that it's not always consistent there on tape. It's not snap in and snap out. He's game wrecking it. But boy, with what he is working with from a natural skill set of talent, I don't have with a lot of other guys necessarily in this draft. I would peg him as actually a later second round pick. Wouldn't maybe take him in the top 15 of the second round, but I would be willing to take him into the later second round pick if they end up trading back into that realm of things. And I would be just as excited by grabbing a Sam Williams, quite honestly, as I would be by Boy Mafi, though I do think Mafi is going to be a better player. I would be just as excited because I think this guy's bringing some very special, tangible elements to his game.
Okay. Okay, I dig that. I liked what I saw too for the most part. Again, you can't help but pay attention when you see somebody run a 4.46 at 261 pounds. But based off these big boards, he might be there at our pick in the third round. So that would be really exciting if you got him down there.
All day, every day. I watched, because it's those guys you watch tape on, Brendon, that you watch a little bit and you plan on watching a game or two, and then you keep watching more because you're enjoying so much of what you're saying. And everything you said as a detriment of his game is completely valid. It's again not always consistent there, but I do come back to with guys on tape where if I see something enough of, it's like, well, the coaching staff's job to get that thing that he's doing great and continue to build off of that and minimize, especially if it's things that you can minimize within his game. And I think you let this guy go hunt after the quarterback, just like Epiketti, just go hunt. He's going to go hunt, and he's going to hunt well right from the jump, I think. Along with, I think you're getting development down the road with him as far as, again, there's some star quality stuff to him. I don't know if they'll reach into it. There's a reason he's fallen to the third round, to your point on that. But man, I liked his tape quite a bit, Brendon. I really did.
Okay, so next up, let's do Kingsley Enagbare of South Carolina, the Gamecocks. This is a little bit of a bigger, slower guy. He ran a 4.87 40 at the combine, 260 pounds, had basically a high amount of experience over the last 4 years for South Carolina. His best season was probably 2021, the most recent year, 43 tackles, 7 for loss, 4.5 sacks. So he's not putting up dominant numbers, but he's a nice player. Some big boards have him in the top half of the second. Most of them have him in the third, though. So he grew a lot across 4 seasons. He's a solid all-around pass rusher. He's powerful. He's got a lot of length. He's got long arms, I think. He maneuvers around blockers and through blockers well. He gets through the wash well to get to the ball carrier. I do think he brings some very nice things to a hybrid defense. However, and I know this is definitely a big deal, he's not very bendy and he doesn't have a lot of pass rush moves. He's going to have to develop some of that stuff. His run defense could use some work as well. So he is a project. And I don't know if his upside is anywhere near what someone like a Sam Williams is, but I do think he's a pretty decent player. So do you have any take on Kingsley?
I think, again, you're summing it up really well. A long-legged guy, played both in 4-3 and 3-4 defenses, so he does bring an ability right out the jump to have familiarity with doing both. I saw not a lot of suddenness off the snap, and you pair that then with looking at the 4.87 40, the 9.9 broad, which is okay. I thought he was also a little stiff in his hips. Takes him a couple steps to kind of get up to speed. Yeah, there's some things to like. He's another guy that does some good cross-face stuff with how he does it, and he's got some snaps that looks really good. He's a high-effort, high-motor type guy, but his inconsistency is wild, snap in and snap out. I don't know if he's got a lot of play strength, either workable, functional play strength that I saw, again, consistently. I think there's some tools there. He's got, to your point, that length shows up, but he knows how to use it. He knows how to use it, which is great. But I do think that with as much there's to work out with him, you've got a fourth round is where I've put my grade on him.
Oh, shoot. Sorry about that. Anyway, okay. So yeah, I wasn't in love with Kingsley after taking a deeper look at him, but he's, somebody who maybe he slips to day 3 and then it's a little more appealing. Right?
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. If you give daily 3, then you're feeling a lot better about it at that point. He's a prospect. He's got a little bit of bend to his little dip to his bend there. Like, I like that stuff that he's got some things he does that's nice, but just doesn't these guys we've talked about, from Drake to Boy to Sam Williams, they are on a little bit of a different level to me. Ebiketie on a different level than where you'd have a guy like Engabari at necessarily.
All right. So
Real,
next up, okay, go ahead.
sorry, real quick, we got
All
a couple
right.
couple donations. $2 from Corsos de Gutierrez. Thank you, Corsos. Says thoughts on Peter Schrager's draft, and I think what he's speaking on. I brought this up in the background. Brendan is
All right. Yeah.
Schrager. Schrager had Charles Cross, with us having
Yeah.
the ability to pick Stingley there.
I would prefer that very much so. So I'm behind that. I can get behind that. Although he did have Kyle Hamilton falling to us, which would kind of hurt, but
Oh, man.
that'd be fine. I like Charles Cross a lot. He's one of my favorite guys in this draft. I would absolutely get behind that.
I'm with Brendan on this. It's a very safe pick at number 9, and we've made some wild picks in recent history. To go with a nice safe pick as we're trying to build this team up, I'd be fine with. To Brendan's point of this as well, though, boy, would it hurt having Hamilton pass you by and knowing, well, we couldn't draft him not because we don't like him. We can't draft him not because we don't think he's the best safety in this draft. Can't draft him because we've already made our bed with Jamal Adams, and that's
And now Quandre Diggs.
and now Quandre Diggs. So yeah, that one would sting, just sting a little bit. Thank you for the donation. And we got one other one here. Pedor, thank you for the second donation, buddy. He says with $2, what about Josh Pascal? I think we're gonna get to him in just a sec. I think he's on your list right here, Brendan.
I did look at him, but I looked at him as more of a 3-4 defensive end than an edge player. I can talk about him because I did look at him, but to me, he might be more of a guy on the line than a guy you want playing in space.
I agree with Brendan on this, Peter. I don't know if Josh is going to be able to necessarily do the stand up. I like to call Josh. He's like what they thought LJ Collier was going to be, is what Josh Pascal is. So it's kind of funny with that. He is a game wrecker in the run game, a tackle for loss machine, and he's had a couple games that people talk about this year as being some of the best tape any defensive end put on tape this year, where he's just completely was destroying the line of scrimmage, sometimes single-handedly. He's really fun, but he's not as much. I look at more run defender as even more than pass rusher. Would you put in that component too, Brendan?
Yeah, I think that's pretty consistent with what I saw. It was a while ago that I looked at him. I've been looking at so many different
I know
players lately.
they all run together after a while, man. I tell you, they do. They really do.
Mhm.
But I like Josh. I think if you got Josh, for me, third round is where I'd like to. I think he might get taken higher in the second round, but because like Brendan said, I think he's run defending 3-4. That's about where the value should be of a guy like that. Though he is better by far than LJ Collier, which just again speaks to how bad the pick of Collier was in the first round.
Mhm.
We won't have that conversation today. All right. Thank you for the donation. What's our next guy up on our list here?
I have Darian Beavers, and I'm gonna have a caveat here when I talk about Darian Beavers. I do think that he may very well end up as an inside linebacker, but I think he can play effective outside. So I'm going to talk about him here, but he could go either way, I think. To me, he is a little bit smaller than you would like your outside linebacker to be in a 3-4, but I think that based off what he did in college, he's going to be able to do it at least some. His 3-cone time was really good. It was like 6.91. His 2021 season, almost 100 tackles, 11 for loss, 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. The big boards are all over the place on him. A couple have him in the third, a couple have him in the fourth, and one has him going undrafted. I don't think there's any way that happens. But I think you are probably looking at a very late day 2 or a very early day 3 pick on him. He can play inside and outside. He's physical. He's a playmaker for that Bearcats defense. Plays with a high football IQ. He's smart against the run. He's got a good understanding of how to play zone coverage. He is powerful enough to move blockers. And because he offers that versatility of being able to play inside and outside, I think that's really good for a hybrid. I think that is something that you could covet in this new defense.
Yeah.
The cons that I found with him were his man coverage is not great. His agility overall is not great. And I do think he will probably end up being more of an inside linebacker eventually. So that's Darian Beavers for me.
Yeah, I was a little in watching his tape. I wasn't sure of where to put him at the next level, Brendan. Where does this guy fit in? What is his position? And there are these guys that are really effective players at the college level. You're just he's not fast enough to this, but then he's not quick enough to that. But not he's a really good run stuffing player on film, and that's the thing that stood out to me. Takes on blockers really well, disengages from blockers really well. He can track and trace and. Even though he's not the fastest guy, does a good job with awareness of working sideline to sideline a little bit. But again, a guy that to me, probably, day 3 guy to me, because of the fact that whatever position you lot him for, you're just not certain on where you
Mhm.
stand with him, where you think you don't feel super confident that he's necessarily going to excel. He might just be a special teams ace kind of guy.
Yeah. Last guy is Tyreek Smith of Ohio State. This guy's kind of a clowny because he does a lot of stuff for the Buckeyes defense, and then the stats just are never there. He
Hmm.
never put up big stats in his career. He had like 3 sacks last year, which was a career high, 26 tackles, career high. But what he actually does for that defense was enough to get him a 4th to 5th round grade from most locations. So I do think he's going to get drafted in the early to mid day 3. He's quick off the snap. He's got good hands. He does show some coverage ability while he was a Buckeye. He's a high effort player. And as a hybrid edge, I think he makes a lot of sense. You are talking about a guy who's the right size and the right frame. I found him to be a little overly aggressive, and sometimes he can get put out of place because of that. There are a lot of inefficiencies in his rush sometimes that make him take a little longer to get to the quarterback. And while he's quick, I don't think he's overly strong. So that was my assessment of Tyreek Smith. Kind of just a throwaway guy here, but definitely somebody you would look at in day 3, I think.
Did you see any traits on him that you would say? I know you wouldn't say they'd fall on special because you see him as a day 3 guy, that were borderline special.
Not especially. Maybe his hands, I guess, for a day
Yeah.
3 guy. But again, that's for a day 3 guy.
And I asked because that's the thing I walked away with him, and I go, why? It's not a good player at the college level, not a bad player. You mentioned a little bit of lack of production when stands out. And okay, he's doing dirty work, which he's coming a lot of times from the strong side edge. Which, if there's going to be one of the 2 defensive ends that's doing the dirty work, it's the strong side guy. Maybe who's doing a little bit of the run centric stuff. The tape I watched on him, though, he got kind of owned on the tape I watched of him. I didn't, when I looked at the Senior Bowl, and there were guys that were lighting it up in the Senior Bowl and separating themselves and elevating their draft process. I didn't think that he was one of those guys. I thought his reps were pretty ho hum. And I
Mhm.
think the tape that stood out to me the most on this was the Minnesota tape against him with Falele out there, and Falele just ate him ate him in pieces throughout the game,
Mhm.
just took away his soul throughout the course of that game, in my opinion. And there were reps where he just completely gave up. I think your point on the takes him a lot of time. You have those players, you go, oh, there's no wasted effort there, no wasted movement, right? No wasted
Mhm.
motion. He's a guy with a lot of wasted movement and a lot of wasted motion in his pass rush game. It's a lot of, as he's
Yeah.
approaching the offensive tackle, and you're like, settle it down, pick a lane, go with that move, and then try to accomplish that first before you do all 15 of them at once. But I got him
Okay.
at fifth rounders where I would put him.
All right, that's fair. So next we're gonna do sleepers,
Okay.
and I don't know what sleepers you looked at, but I looked at 6. These are all guys who I think are lock it up day 3 picks. Some of
Okay.
them may go undrafted. There are 2 guys in particular that I really like, and we're gonna do one of those 2 first.
Okay.
And this is a guy that we need to talk about because the Seahawks have already been heavily linked to him. It's D'Angelo Malone of Western Kentucky.
Hmm.
6'3", 243, 4.5640. So pretty good combo of size and speed for this part of the draft. He had 2 seasons in college where he almost had 100 tackles playing edge. I don't know how he did that, but that you don't see that often. Usually the edge players are getting like 30, 40, maybe 50. He got 100 almost. I think he had 99 in 2019. Over his 4-year career in college, he had like 60 tackles for loss and 31 sacks, always living in the backfield. Incredible amount of production. He can play in a 2-point stance or a 3-point stance. He's very fast, great athlete, always giving effort, and he's got good length. What I will say about him is that even though he looks like he can play in space, looks like he can do 3-4 outside linebacker stuff in terms of dropping into coverage, he hasn't done it yet. So it's just a projection.
Yeah.
He can struggle against the run, and he is a little bit lean. But D'Angelo Malone is a guy this team has already expressed some interest in. And if he's there at like our 5th round pick, I would be shocked if we didn't take him.
And I would be on this one, Brendan willing, I think, even to go up as high as the 4th round on him. I like him better
Mhm.
than Tyreek Smith. I called him, my notes have him listed here, relentless edge defender. So I really like that part of him. He's just a guy that's part of, I think, how he racks up these sacks. He's a guy that you love your pairing, Brendan. You know, they always go the high motor guys. And what's the thing we always see with the high motor guys, right? Lack of explosiveness, not special length, right? You know what I'm going with this? Not a lot of bend, not a lot of athleticism. This guy's got quick twitch, and high motor, both of them comboed together. And that to me is what can lead to a very productive pass rusher at the next level. I loved how violent his hands were. I've got his patented move as he starts outside, swipes the hands down to the tackle, and then jumps back inside. And that's kind of his to me patented move on it. Really good at it. And again, like we were talking about with the I forget the other guy we were speaking about. Oh, Ebiketie, where it's again, he's got to move, he's got a pass rush to press the outside, and he's got the counter to go inside. Most of these guys, if they have a move, it's a one-trick pony type situation coming out of college, and they've got to learn the other assemblage of moves to kind of pair with it a little bit, so that linemen just don't take it away and that they're stuck with nothing. He is a little bit of a plan A, no plan B guy. So his plan A is really good. Plan A usually works well, but if the plan B A doesn't work, there's not a plan B to go to with him. But I'm very excited by him. Another guy, when I talked about with Tyreek, who didn't show out in the Senior Bowl, this is a guy that did show out in the Senior Bowl, which was very important because he was coming from Western Kentucky, which is a smaller program. So now you're starting to get him in the Senior Bowl up against other NFL prospects, whereas you didn't have that to go off of with the film on him. You know, you get these guys out of Appalachian State or whatever, and it's not as easy. It's at times when they're going up against guys, they're going to be the doctors and lawyers and all that stuff, you know, in a couple of years.
Yeah. Insurance salesman.
That's right. That's right. It's like they're really into football right now, but they're just waiting for that salary. You know what I mean? It's like, well, versus, you know, oh, we got to see this guy going up against the Alabama front. You know, like you can take, it's harder to take stuff away on these smaller school guys because of that.
All right, so these next few guys, we're going to kind of lightning round, I think, because I'm not that interested in them. They're all just kind of like random sleepers that caught my eye. But let's just kind of go through a couple of guys here. So first we have Jeffrey Gunter from Coastal Carolina. A little bit of a bigger guy. He's got a lot of strength. He can push linemen around. He's really good against the run. He forces runs to the inside really well. He sets the edge. He's got a nice bull rush to collapse the pocket. If you get Gunter, I think he will be really good against the run, but he doesn't really offer you that much in terms of a pass rush. His career high at sacks at Coastal Carolina was like 6.5, and that's playing against doctors and lawyers, like you said. Maybe not even there. At Coastal Carolina, that might be like, I don't know, milkmen or something.
Yeah, that's like teachers and yeah, milkmen.
Horse jockeys.
UPS drivers.
Yeah. So this is another guy you would kind of say high effort, but he's not explosive. He's not fast. So just somebody I kind of looked at and was intrigued by, but he's mostly just going to be a run guy. I like Kerry Hyder, maybe.
Yeah. And honestly, on these ones, the only guy that I'm vaguely aware was the Dominic Robinson of your group on this one. So I've got to look at Jeffrey Gunter's tape still, get a feel for him.
Okay. Yeah. Ali Fayyad was Western Michigan. Which wasn't that where Dwayne Eskridge came from, or am I thinking of the wrong school? Was that Western Michigan?
No,
oh, nice.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thought so. So he's got good size. He's very slow, though. Basically ran a 4.9 40. Last season had 12 sacks, 17.5 tackles for loss. I could only find him on one big board. They actually have him going undrafted. So this is a true sleeper, but he's a great hybrid fit. He may be able to contribute as a 3-4 outside linebacker. He may be able to play a 4-3 Sam role. I don't know exactly what the NFL has in store for him, but if you get him, I think that he's got multiple opportunities to find his place, either as a 4-3 Sam, 3-4 outside linebacker, maybe even a 3-4 inside linebacker. So that's kind of intriguing to me. He is slow, but there was something here that caught my attention as like a UDFA pick.
How was his short area burst? Is it like not sudden and slow, or is it like he's got a little bit of quick stack and then just not fast?
Well, his measurables at the combine for the short area quickness were not very good. His 3-cone was 7.31. His 20-yard shuttle was 4.57, I think. So it's not very good.
Yeah.
Like he leaves a lot to be desired there. And again, playing at a small school, but that doesn't stop everybody.
No, that's and it shouldn't knock anybody out. I mean, there's guys coming out of small schools that are good. You know, if you got talent, you got talent. So
All right, Dominic Robertson, like you said, this Robinson, this is another one of the guys I looked at. I know you said you did too. Miami of Ohio, 6'5", 253 pounds. Had one season of significant production, and it was not that significant, like 4.5 sacks, 8.5 tackles for loss. But he's expected to be drafted in day 3 for sure. He's got the talent to be a guy for sure. Unlike somebody like an Ali Fayyad, he's very quick and agile. He's very explosive, and he doesn't really have a lot of experience playing on defense. I think he was recruited as an offensive player, so he's probably going to get a lot better over the next few years. And he showed the ability to play in coverage, so he can do the stand-up stuff.
well, he's a wide receiver convert. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
those wide receiver converts go to being cornerbacks. You know, your Trayvon Digg types. They have a proficiency with, you know, just knowing how being able to be more comfortable dropping in zone. I think a little bit less than your average bear at defensive end. You're right. This is a guy that you normally have your 5th round picks, man. That you know, like we might mention Tyreek Smith, and God bless Tyreek Smith, Brendan. He just doesn't get me excited. This guy, though, you take in the 5th, 6th round, and there are tools here. I mean, jumped 41 inches. He is sudden for his size. He can change direction on a dime. He has no refinement. He's just learning how to do this position, just learning what the hell is going on. But again, when we talk about physical traits that I can't teach, that he's coming out of the box, and now it's my job as a coach to get the most out of those traits. That's what this guy has, and has it in bunches, even versus some of these other guys we spoke on this list. But it is maybe as raw as we would find on this list as well. Still, if you walk away with the 6th round pick on this guy, you know it's nothing but you know it's nothing but cream on that one, in my opinion. And again, it just goes beyond that normal kind of sometimes boring guy where you go, this guy's going to be limited by this and this. There's only so much he's going to be able to do to get around that. Jamarco Jones was that guy when we drafted him. A lot of people were really encouraged by him, though. But you looked at his athletic profile and you go, he's always going to be limited by this athletic profile. It's always going to hold him back to some small degree. You know, he can still play in the league, but there's the top side's never going to be there because of this thing.
Right. I also took a look at Noah Burks from Wisconsin, mostly because I think he would be a good fit for a 3-4 defense. He's pretty good at the coverage stuff. He's good against the run, but he doesn't really give you much as a pass rusher. I think that's kind of a pretty high priority for an outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense. So that might be kind of a non-starter, but I do think he'll go undrafted. So maybe you pick him up as a UDFA for training camp.
Hell yeah.
This last guy is kind of my current super sleeper crush.
Okay.
It's David Ane from the Houston Cougars.
Okay.
Measurables are nice for a guy who's probably going to be a UDFA. 6'3", 250 pounds, 4.67 40. Had 4 productive years at Houston. Most recent season was his best. 30 tackles, 10 for loss, 5 sacks. He's got good burst off the edge for a guy who's going to be in UDFA especially. He's long. He's got some length to him. High motor. Plays well in space. He can bull rush you and speed rush you. He has a variety of moves. He can hold up in the run. He gives you a lot of stuff that you wouldn't expect to find this late in the draft. The issue with him mostly is just he needs to improve his football IQ. He kind of has a awareness problem, I think. He needs to play football a little bit more and pick up some of these things. But in terms of the tools, I think he has a lot more tools than anybody who is going to probably go undrafted has any right to be. So he caught my eye.
Yeah, that'd be awesome if you can pick him up. It's rare that the NFL will let those tools go through like that. Sorry, we'll let those tools go through like that. But it does happen where guys will just fall for whatever weird reason, despite having that production. Houston's been kicking out. They've got some players in this draft that are good defensive players recently. There's been some guys that have been going. They've become more and more legitimate as a program from a defensive standpoint in recent years with some of the prospects they've been churning out to the NFL level.
And that's all I have for the edge players. That's all I was able to take a look at. If there's anybody that you really want to throw in as well that I didn't get to, let me know, and I can definitely look at them over the next couple weeks. But those were the guys who caught my attention.
I think you got the guys that I've looked at as well. I mean, that's pretty
Mhm.
much where my list is on the top guys. I'm getting into that third tier group now, which there might be a few more of those diamond in the rough types, but that's kind of where my list is at as well, as far as the initial guys.
Okay, so let's spend a little bit of time on the inside linebackers. So let's move on inside here. And I had a lot of people I looked at here as well, including Devin Lloyd, who we already spoke on, but I want to spend a second here.
Yeah.
I, after really looking at him and really thinking about it, I'm kind of in the place with him now where if we took him in the first round, maybe after a small trade back, I
Hmm.
wouldn't like it, but I'm all the way to the point now where I wouldn't dislike it. I would be like, okay, okay, sure. Like I kind of got to that point. That took a lot of work because I really don't want to take an inside linebacker in the first,
Right.
but he brings so much stuff to the table. I actually kind of talked myself into it a little bit. What do you think?
I think this draft is a draft that has only so many players that are pretty lock solid guys that you can't go wrong with. And he is one of them. He's in that Linderbaum mode, I think. There's a couple guys in that mode. It's them guys are more star potential than others. The thing that's nice about Devin is you got a problem with Jordan Brooks even going forward at the middle linebacker, and you've negated some of those problems by moving him back to the middle off the will, by transitioning to more of a 3-4 defense, which now has another middle linebacker next to him in coverage essentially at times. So that's going to help him. He's not going to give up maybe 1,000 yards in the air again this year, Brendon. And Devin is perhaps one of the best coverage linebackers in this draft. And so he's going to augment a little bit of the skill set of Jordan Brooks. And he's a very complete linebacker as well. He's rangy. He can tackle well, excellent in coverage, both zone and man. So again, I can't hate the pick necessarily in the respect of this isn't a bust pick. I hate when I know there's a chance that you're picking a bust pick without that high end potential, really. That's why I didn't like as much the LJ or the Jordan. Jordan's going to be a fine player, but there's going to be always issues in coverage. And if I'm taking a guy in the first round, having a glaring issue is a problem. No glaring issues with Devin Lloyd. I would like them to go a different direction with it, but if they did the Seahawky thing, because it is a Seahawk move right here, Brendon, right? The Seahawk move here for senior bats would be Devin Lloyd's the pick. But he's very safe. You're not going to get a bust
Yeah.
factor with him at all.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if I was just like coming to terms with what I know is going to happen. We're going to do something like that, or if he really is that good. I kind of am starting to feel like maybe he really is that good.
I think he really is that good. It's a boring position for us to. There's more exciting positions that your eyes will gravitate towards, and middle linebacker is one that just is hard, especially with us coming on the heels of just taking a middle linebacker 2 drafts ago. It's not where the first place you go to is, but you can't deny the kid's talent, and you can't deny that there's even when we're picking here at number 9, there's guys that we could pick that'll have a lot bigger bust factor to them and a potential than this kid does. And we need more certain items here. We need more upper level talent and we need more certain items, less, we're going to swing as hard as we can and hopefully we'll put it in the second deck. How about we open our eyes, just put it over the top of the fence and call it a day?
Okay, so I think we can kind of skip over Nakobe Dean. I did look at him and he's very good. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't see the 3-4 fit. I think he's a little too small
Mm-hmm.
and he struggles to get off blockers, and you need to do that a little bit more in the 3-4. So
Yeah.
I spent time looking at him, but I don't see it. I like him. He's going to be awesome, I
Mm-hmm.
think, but I don't see it in a 3-4.
I see a good player as well as you do. Really good in the blitz game of it, but I don't know if he's because of the size quotient. I don't know if he'll exactly fit. But he's fun. He's a fun player. He can do a lot of different things in coverage. He'd do a lot of the same stuff that Lloyd would do as far as um, helping out Jordan Brooks with the coverage aspect from the inside. But I will give you that he is 6 feet tall and just barely at 6 feet tall at that.
The combine had him at 5'11.
No,
So
so I'm
he's
right.
basically
So there you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When they call him 6 feet, that seemed like one of those ones like, we'll just call him 6 feet. That sounds good. Like,
Yeah. Okay, I have Chad Muma, however, and he's interesting to me
mm-hmm,
because he's a little bigger. He played at Wyoming, which, okay, we're not too thrilled about that, but he's got good speed. He's
mm-hmm,
got good agility. He had a lot of production last year, 142 tackles, 3 interceptions. He's got great all around coverage skills, moves very well in space, great against the run, high football IQ, was the play caller for that defense. I do think that he will eventually get to the point where he can play very effectively in a 3-4. So I'm not too worried about that here. You would probably have to spend a high third or a low second round pick to get him based off the big boards.
Mm-hmm. Agreed there. He's a guy that strikes me as a big time workout warrior to a degree. He put up 27 reps on the bench, also paired
Mhm.
with a 40-inch vert for a linebacker. Those are awesome numbers. Tackling machine, great coverage ability, takes outstanding routes to the ball carrier. That's part of where his tackling comes from. Is he always will take the right route to get there, never off in that respect. Intuitive as a defender, just understands where things are going. I think he could do some Sam stuff if you need him to play some Sam linebacker, because I think he has the strength over there to set the edge. I don't think he's the most natural athlete. I think
Mhm.
there's a little bit of a stiffness to him in that realm of things, even though he did run again pretty good numbers: 10.9 broad, 7.06 3-cone, 4.28 shuttle. Weren't bad numbers for a middle linebacker. But I do like him. I agree with you. You're probably looking somewhere in that weird dead zone we're not in right now, being middle second to early third is probably about where he goes. But a very good player. He's going to make some defense very happy as the middle of their team. He could play, I think, 4-3-3-4. Doesn't matter. He could do, I think, both of them. But got the size you need in the SIP to hold up inside there. He could take on guards coming down at the second level.
Mhm. Christian Harris, I looked at, but I kind of feel the same way about him. He's a little too small. I don't think he's going to be great at dealing with blockers. So I don't know if he's a fit. Do you disagree on that at all? I like him again. He ran a 4.4440, but I don't know if I see the fit.
I think I see him as a will in a 4-3.
Hmm.
I think that's
Yeah.
my it's yeah, guy's really good, but I think with Christian Harris, I saw a guy that's 6'2". I don't think you're going to have him up at the outside as a 3-4 stand-up guy. I think you put him out at a will in a 4-3, and I think he would be very good in that role.
All right. So the next guy I was really mixed on. I'm torn here. Quay Walker from Georgia, another Bulldog linebacker. They sent
Mm,
their whole linebacker crew to the draft this year, and they're all going to go in the top 100,
yeah, they are.
probably. Uh, Bigger guy, 241, 6'4", 4.5, 240. Only really one productive year at college football, and it wasn't that productive. I think the Georgia defense just kind of shares all their stats too much. So you
Yeah.
never see one linebacker get like 150 tackles.
Mm.
So I'm not going to hold that against him so much.
No, I'm with you. This one took a while for me. I don't know. Did you? You watched a little bit of film on your. You go. I don't know what I don't know what I'm seeing quite yet. And some of these guys you have to seal like okay. He was okay. He didn't get me terribly excited, Brendan. And it seems like God. What were like 3 teams that played defense in college football this year? It was Georgia, Baylor, and there was one other team I was thinking of maybe that out there that is churning out like 5 prospects into this draft. I don't know. It's kind of wild to
Isn't
see.
Well, how many is Cincinnati doing? They're doing
Yeah,
Sauce, they're doing
Cincy's the other one.
Beavers.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
Cincy might be the other one where it's like, Jesus, dude, nobody else has got any defensive players. Bad in zone. So that if you want to look for something that's going to probably X him off the Seahawks boards instantaneously, because we are still
Mhm.
going to be playing a good amount of zone coverage, not good in zone coverage. I think he could do some Sam stuff. I think he's got some ability to play across the board and do a variety of things. He's very good about disengaging with blockers. So I think he could hold up inside as a middle. But just not a lot of flash and dash to his game. Not a ton of flash. Very good run defender. Really, really good run defender. No denying that. He can stop the run, get off blocks, take on blocks head on, strong as a bull, but just not a lot of sizzle for what picking in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah. I will say this though, he doesn't have a lot of experience playing college football, so he may improve rapidly over the next couple years. I wouldn't rule that out, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. He still has got some upside to him. Another guy too, like the other guy we just talked about, too, might be better in more of a 4-3 as a will, or maybe more as a Sam, or I don't know. I'm another guy I'm torn still on, even though I've watched a lot of his tape.
Okay, this last guy is really interesting because he's a very intriguing prospect, had a monster 2021, but here's the thing. He's probably going to miss all of 2022 because he had a spine surgery. And it sounds a little scary, but because of that, he may end up slipping out of the top 100. This is a guy who I think would have been at least a third round pick, maybe higher. And Walter Football actually had him in the first round, but not after missing not after getting his spine worked on. It's a Damone Clark of LSU.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 6'3", 240 pounds, 4.5740. Had a monster 2021, 135 tackles, 15 for loss, 5.5 sacks. High character dude. A lot of stuff I saw praised his high character, high effort, always trying really hard out there. He's got some versatility as a player. He can affect the game in many different ways. He's a good athlete, covers ground really fast, and you can even put him out on the edge. But again, you are talking about a red shirt for 2022 in all likelihood. It's not a guarantee yet, but I doubt he plays in 2022. He's not great in coverage either, which may be a problem because of the Jordan Brooks thing. But if Damone Clark were to slip down to like the 4th or maybe the 5th round because of that injury, at what point are you interested?
I'm interested in. I've got him slotted at the top of the 2nd round right now. I look at him as a bigger version of Darius Leonard. That's my kind of comp for you. But the spine stuff scares the hell out of me, Brendan. It scares the hell out of me, man. He's just a big linebacker, easy athleticism. He's got the closing speed of a safety. He's damn near impossible to block at the 2nd level. Man, I liked his tape as much as just about any linebacker in this draft. So you talk about the 3rd round, it might be hard to pass, but I need to see that medical chart. What spine injury is this? Because there's spine injuries they can fix, and there's spine injuries that it's like, he's going to be fighting through it. He'll be dealing as he can with it.
Yeah. Let me look. Okay, underwent spinal fusion surgery to repair a herniated disc in March.
Feels like those things always come back around, doesn't it? I mean, doesn't it kind of? I'm going 4th round. I feel like herniated discs on surgery come back around at some point or another. Like they need a tune-up in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Take it to the shop.
But at a certain point, it's got to be worth the risk.
It does, and he's upside as talented as a linebacker as there's in the draft. No questions about his size or length. There's star. You talk about star potential. There's there with him. But boy, I mean, backs are one of those things. Look at what Gronk's gone through the years. Gronk's fought through it, but there's guys I know with back injuries where it's just they can't get over it once it gets you.
I mean, Gronk's not looking so good to me. Watching him play last year, it was like,
I know. Yeah, I think you feel like the whole thing's fused.
Yeah. Okay, so to me, those are the top 6 interior linebackers in this draft pretty clearly. So next area is kind of like tier 3 to 4, I guess you could call it, like that zone. And there were another 6 guys that caught my attention. This first one is really kind of unique. A couple big boards actually have him listed as a safety, but he played linebacker for the Cornhuskers. I'm talking Jojo Domon. Very small, but the unique thing about him is that he is maybe the best coverage linebacker in this draft. He always played outside the box for Nebraska. I think they even lined him up outside the hashes sometimes.
Slot corner.
He's a great fit for the modern NFL where you see all these teams passing the ball so much and the passing game's becoming so prolific. If your opponents are teams that pass the ball, like one scouting report I read put it a really good way. If you're a team in the AFC North and you have to deal with teams like the Ravens and the Steelers that like to pound the ball a lot, JoJo's not going to help you very much. But if you're in a division with teams that really like to spread things out and air the ball out a lot, then he's going to be awesome. And he is actually sound against the run as well. He was graded very well against the run, despite being mostly a cover player. So he's not worthless there. He's just a little small and also a little bit old. So, and a little injury prone. So there are some little dings you can put there in the back of that washing machine that drive the price down 90%. But there's a very unique skill set here, and he definitely caught my attention because we need a cover linebacker.
Yeah, there's no player in this draft, to your point on this, that's like this guy. That has something that's this wild of a variance of what he could provide for you. If we were playing more of the 4-3 Sam stuff, Brendan, I'd really like him. He's got so many snaps where he's playing that Sam and then he's left unblocked and he just cuts right through the heart of that backfield. And it's a TFL machine in that respect. And not only does he cut through the back, he's arriving with some force and thunder. And I saw him just take some running backs right off their feet without even a chance to make a move. And he was just that sudden in that respect. He played legitimate slot corner for them, where you can, call playing off ball, but he went to slot and he manned up well. And he zoned up well. You're right about being maybe the best cover linebacker in this draft. So very unique. I've got a Sam linebacker and I got a slot corner all in one player, but he's 6 feet tall and he's a little injury prone and he's a little bit old. So it goes a little bit into the washer on this one, doesn't it? As far as trying to qualify where you feel like you got to best put him. I'm drawn between 4th and 5th round with him because we don't do the Sam stuff in a 4-3 anymore. And I don't know if he's going to be able to be as good at a 6 foot 3-4 outside linebacker. So I'm a little bit, that pushes him down the draft board for me, though I think his talent probably should be taken in the 4th round. Maybe I'm saying 5th round is where I put him. And it's driven down because of that reason, Brendon, because I just don't think he's as much a fit in the new defense unless we're playing a lot more snaps with the 4-3 Sam. And if we are, then he's an absolute fit.
All right. I think that's a pretty fair assessment. Probably not exactly what we need.
Where do you sit with it?
Well, I on the big boards, they actually think he's probably like a 4th round pick. Yeah. I concede that he probably isn't going to fit what we need to do. I just really like him. I think that's a really unique skill set.
He's a fun player, isn't he? Just to watch. Yeah. I mean, he's just awesome.
Okay, so Channing Tindall was the next guy, another Georgia guy. We got all 3 of them. 6'2", 230 pounds, ran a very nice 40 time, 4.47. Only really has 1 year of production at college. 67 tackles, 7.5 for loss, 5.5 sacks. So not even huge numbers, but again, it's Georgia. Every time you go into the backfield to try to get a sack, you're trying to beat like 3 other guys to the quarterback. You don't put up big stats. Every big board I saw actually has him going day 2, except for Walter Football that apparently hates him. They have him going undrafted. So figure that out.
Walter's slow on their updates of their prospects. They'll put an assessment in like a year and a half out and then never update it.
Yeah, the thing is, the thing at the top says like they update every day, and I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah.
So anyway, Tindall, he's a good athlete. He's destructive on the blitz, really good against the run, can set the edge. At the very least, he's going to be an excellent special teamer. Not long. He kind of lacks bend in the pass rush game, despite being a good blitzer. He is going to need to develop because he didn't play that much in college. And at no point was he ever one of the best players on that Georgia defense. So it makes you wonder. But nevertheless, I did have him in this range, and I would be intrigued potentially.
Yeah, I put him in the 4th round as well, Brendon. I think he's a guy that he's got some similarities. It's like he's about a guy that's about a half inch taller than Jordan Brooks and very similar traits to Jordan Brooks's game, but without Jordan Brooks's coverage in man ability. And maybe he's a little bit better in zone than Jordan is in zone. So that like they're, to me, kind of have some similarities. Jordan's obviously a little bit better of a prospect. This kid hasn't shown it as consistently in as much as Jordan did when he was at Texas Tech. I think it was Texas Tech. Very explosive, Brendon, really explosive. He jumped a 10-9 broad, which is pretty good. 10-9 is really getting out there. A really big time hitter. He can delay a thump. I do see him as a middle linebacker. I like him. I do like him in the 4th round. I think that's about the right value for him at that point. You got a little bit of this, what we're going to call this year, the Georgia predicament, Brendon. And that is that we've got these guys in this Georgia team that played really good, but all of them have this sort of rotational thing to them where we don't just get snap after snap with them on the football field where you're watching whole games of this guy. It's like you get 10 snaps here and then you wait 7-8 snaps and then there's 6 snaps here and then you wait. And it's hard to make heads or tails of that all the time when the guy's not just in there playing and play out. He's being put in at every time and every point to basically succeed, being put in a position to do well. I mean, you want to sometimes see how a guy does against his lack of strengths, sometimes.
Okay, so I looked at Brian Asamoah from Oklahoma, but he was another guy who I was like, this is a 4-3 fit. This is not a 3-4 guy.
4-3 will.
Yeah. But this next guy may be a different story. And I know you like this guy. I like this guy. A lot of people like this guy. It's Troy Anderson from Montana State.
If I've got a top 10 players in this draft that I just love, regardless of drafting position, just guys I love in this draft. He'd be in my top 10 of that list of just guys I love. A guy that played, I think, some quarterback and on the offensive side of the ball,
Running back.
running back, has only recently gotten to the defensive side of the ball. Amazingly athletic, really, really fast. He's a guy you think would be really rough around the edges as far as his ability to get off blocks and disengage, but that's actually the strength of his game. He absolutely obliterates lead blockers. You are not going to keep him blocked. It's not just, he can slide off or he can hammer you off one way or the other. He will get off. And then he's great in coverage because of that speed too. He can do everything great in his game. There's part of me that thinks that he should be, for the smart team out there looking at the top of the first round, the back of the first round, that he shouldn't even slide in first round range. And I may be crazy for that, but I just loved his tape. I think he's going to be an impact player at the next level. I think you could play him all over the place and he's just going to succeed. He's just that kind of cat in who he is. I think you can even have him do some outside 3-4 stuff, Brendan. I think he's even got the size and ability in his game to do that. He'll be at his best in the middle. He'd be great in coverage to offset that stuff with Jordan Brooks. Part of the reason why too, Brendan, I don't like I'm okay with Devin Lloyd, but you could go for the best player available at Devin Lloyd and then take a Troy Anderson in the second round and get all of that coverage help that you're talking about in Devin Lloyd now in the second round with a player that I don't know how necessarily that he's hugely far off of Devin Lloyd. He's just so new to the position there and playing Montana State that I think people knock him down a little bit. What are your thoughts?
Right. I love him too. I love his 4.4240. I love the season that he had in 2021. I love the fact that he might even have some packages on offense. Like, I don't know, he might Taysom Hill this stuff.
You could. Yeah. He's that special of an athlete.
Yeah, he's big and he's fast. He's great in coverage. He brings so much stuff to the table. He's so unique. I really like him. And the stuff that he's not good at, it's probably going to come with experience.
Yeah, I agreed. The more this guy plays, I think the better he's going to be. And as you know, with me on the way I look at draft, it's the potential for me. I'm always driven towards this guy's got this upper level of potential to him. Well, he's not there yet. Yeah, but it's right there to be had if you just give him some of that developmental time, and he will get there, in my opinion. And I think he's going to be an impact player.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this that's one guy that we both really like. Here's a guy that I actually kind of grew fond of. I don't know about you. We haven't talked about this guy yet.
Hold on one sec. I just got to unlock my door real quick. Bear with 1 second.
Oh, okay, no problem. I'm going to find my copy of the,
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to start reading my manifesto, the Unabomber manifesto on your stream to get your channel shut down, but you came back too fast.
Just got back in quick, just under the wire. Who's this guy? Who we got?
Leo Chanel from the Wisconsin Badgers. One of the few guys I looked at who is specifically a 3-4 ILB fit. Mm-hmm. He's got the size, 250, 4.5340, had a monster 2021, 115 tackles, 18.5 for loss, 8 sacks, living in the backfield, probably a round 3 pick, but he has a chance to creep up into round 2.
Yeah.
Excellent on the blitz. He's great blitzing up the A gaps. He's a hard hitter. He's fast, elite playmaker, really, really strong. There are some concerns, like his agility is probably not great. He doesn't change directions that well. He is going to have to become a more cerebral player and understand things like, okay, the running back's here, the play's going this way. I need to go here. I need to be here at this point. But that'll probably come with experience. And he's not very good in coverage, which is kind of not great when you have a Jordan Brooks. Yeah. But I really liked some of the stuff he brought as a 3-4 linebacker.
Fun player. Like I said, he may have some change of direction issues, but boy, he's got some straight line front explosion, doesn't he? 4.53, almost a 41-inch vertical leap, 10.8 broad jump. He looks like the Hulk at linebacker a little bit, right? He just looks like just big and just, and he plays like that. He arrives with bad intentions. When he hits the ball carrier is going down. He's a sure tackler. He does, to your point, I think his awareness is pretty good. It's going to need to stand to improve because of that little bit of lack of agility. And there are some questions. You're right on point with that as far as some of his coverage ability goes. But as far as a guy that could be a linchpin leader of your defense type, him and Jordan be the, kind of a dynamic duo in that middle where you're not going to be able to run the ball in those two guys. You're not running up our A gap with those two guys as your linebackers in this defense. You know what I mean? Like those guys are going to keep it clear there. You might get us to the edge, but you ain't getting us up the middle with these two cats running it. So Chanel's very good. I do agree. Some people are putting him in the third round. I think some team's going to bite on him in the second round and be like, this is our middle linebacker. this is the guy we want running our defense. Those guys, they can fall through the first, but get all the way through the back end of that second round, especially with teams that are playoff teams that might need a guy in the middle to guide the defense through. I feel like that's the spot where he kind of goes. Isn't that where he took Bobby Wagner, by the way, too? Wasn't that Bobby's
Yeah.
spot?
He was like 47th overall or something.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of in that range with him, but he's a good player.
Yeah. By the way, I also liked his partner at the linebacker core at Wisconsin, Jack Sanborn. And that's a guy who isn't as good of an athlete, but he can cover a little better. So that might actually be another guy too who I kind of got into because he's also a 3-4 fit.
I'll take a look at him. I haven't checked into Sanborn yet, but I'll definitely check him out.
Yeah. Last guy in my like fourth tier would be Jesse Lukita from Penn State. I probably mispronounced the name, but he's got good size. He is slow. His 2021 was his best season, 61 tackles, 8.5 for loss, one interception as well. Most of the big boards have him going in like round 6. So this is a sleeper. The Draft Network loves him though. They think he could actually go in the 3rd. Little bit of versatility. He played some defensive end at Penn State. He's long. He's got good hands, pushes through blockers, always gives effort. But he does have a lot to learn on passing downs. He needs to find a way to contribute either as a rusher or a cover guy. And he just has a lot of stuff he needs to work on. But I kind of liked him.
I like him too. Boy, if we took him in the 3rd round, I might lose it. I would be very annoyed if we took Jesse Lukita in the first round, 4'8", 940. And he paired that with a 114-inch broad jump, which is not a good broad jump at that size weight measurement. He's a real physical player, but the slow aspects can't be understated. It's not like he's slow on a track. It's slow on a football field. I termed it in my notes. It's like his feet are rooting down every time he's taking a step, and he's got to pull the roots up out of the ground as he's picking up his foot that he's just planted back down. When he's in middle linebacker mode, to your point, he played both positions. He often takes the cheese on play action. He just wants to play everything in the run game, and he's not really all that interested in anything having to do with the back end of things. To your point as well, does a really good job when he's at defensive end, moving off middle linebacker to defensive end and setting the edge. And he's got really heavy hands, which you wouldn't maybe expect a middle linebacker to go to defensive end and have heavy hands. You'd think he'd maybe be getting swallowed up a little bit, but this guy was able to hold up over there and do a good job in that realm of things. I don't think you're going to see this guy chasing anything down the field. He is. You'll see a running back go, and he's a yard or two away, and he seems like maybe he's got an angle, and he just doesn't get there. The running back ends up running past because he's trying. He's running as hard as he can. He just doesn't have the gear to get it there. So for me, he's a guy. To me, I pushed him into the sixth round. I would even take him in the 5th for my opinion on it. I think he's another man, a little bit like out of position, doesn't have an exact spot where I can place him. And another guy that I don't know that he's got a lot of top end to him. Maybe he's a good special teams guy, but I just don't see a lot of top. I don't see a starter level player in the NFL.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. So I've got some sleepers. So let's go lightning round and just tell me if you're familiar with these guys at all. Terrell Bernard from the Baylor Bears.
Boy, does he look slight.
Yeah, 224 pounds, but he did have 4 productive years. I do think he will probably be more of a 4-3 fit, if anything. But I kind of like some of the stuff he brought to the table in terms of his range and his ability to play in space. He can blitz, he can cover, does a lot of different things pretty well.
He's a good blitzer. He does a good job at when he gets a running back trying to step in the hole and take him on. He'll buckle them. He does a good job of that. I thought a lot of his tackles came via the Bobby Wagner 2021 model of tackles. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like he's catching him a couple yards down the field quite a bit. A little janky as an athlete, though he's got some speed, like you're saying there. So there is a little bit with it. Sometimes the offensive lineman too, just to me, they say he's 225. Brendan, you buy his 225. He looked 215, 210 to me on the football field, and linemen just swallow him whole.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem. DeMarco Jackson from Appalachian State, actually another guy who was listed as a 3-4 fit. So he caught my attention. He's fast. He's got decent size, not great. Good experience level at Appy State. He reacts well to the ball carrier, has the ability to rush from the edge. Gives high effort, making plays sideline to sideline. DeMarco Jackson would be a guy who I might not even hate in like the 5th round.
Yes. Now you're speaking more of my language here. I like DeMarco Jackson's game. I don't know. Maybe it's because sometimes I do this guys that just have the same number on them. Kind of had a Patrick Willis body. to a little bit of a patch. If you go watch him, kind of that Patrick Willis kind of just something. He's not as explosive as Patrick. He's not Patrick as a talent level, though he was 4.55 and did 125 on the broad, and he was pretty good numbers there. I loved his zone drops. Whenever he dropped in his zone, Brendon, he would always naturally go, it seems like, to the first guy on short drops for the quarterback. That was the first read of the quarterback, and then take that read away. And it was not that he was the primary defender always. There'd be a defender off the snap with the receiver, and then he would jump up into the zone just to completely sniff it out and take it away. So I love his instincts as well. He's got enough explosion, enough speed. Absolutely. If you're in the 5th round, I'm on it. I'm with it.
Chance Campbell from Ole Miss, a guy who really flashed high-end potential but didn't consistently show it. But I would be willing to take him in like the 6th round just based off the potential.
And I don't know too much on him.
Ellis Brooks, but I quickly realized he's probably more of a 4.3 guy despite having decent size, from Arkansas, Razorback. And the final guy was Joshua Ross from Michigan, who is actually considered to be a pretty good fit for a 3-4. Their defensive leader. He plays fast. He closes to the ball carrier quickly, hard hitter. He can take on lead blockers and shed them well. Good blitzing up the A-gaps. Just not really good in coverage, which is not exactly what we need right now. But
I did take a look at Ross, and I liked his game. I did like his game. Boy, he is a guy that just is a hunter from the middle linebacker position. You know what I mean? Come in. He's a hunter from the middle linebacker position. Sorry, let me get this 1 second.
No problem. All right. Yeah, everyone in the chat, please hit the like button if you haven't already, guys. Let's get this up. Let's get the like count up. Come on.
Let's do it. But I like Josh's game quite a bit. He is another run stuffing middle linebacker. I think you're right about a little bit of the coverage worries. It's a little bit of a hole to his game, but he's a guy that'd be an interesting guy in the 5th, 6th round, maybe potentially.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's all I got. So that's all the linebackers that I've evaluated for this draft. A lot of really good ones, a lot of really intriguing ones, a lot of good options, but I think that covers us pretty well.
Well, fantastic. Yeah, it's a good list. There's some guys all across the board from the 2nd round on into the 5th round that would be intriguing candidates here, Brendon. I mean, some guys and some unique skill sets. Not a lot of the same guy, cookie cuttered in, guy after guy after guy, but a bit of a variety there in that respect. Well, we got one get through our super chat here real quickly. And this Pater, another Juilliard Nation, thank you, Pater. He says, have you guys watched any of Max Mitchell? If you had a chance,
I did a little bit, yeah. I think we talked about him last week. I liked him.
I did too.
I don't remember exactly what I said.
I think from my standpoint, Pater, I've got him elevated higher than other boards are going to have him elevated. I loved his tape. It's going to be, you got to have a little imagination in watching him because he's not coming from a big time school. I've got him even up as high as, to me, the late 2nd to 3rd round range of things. And I might even push him up higher before the draft because I'm going to watch a little more tape on him.
Yeah, I had very athletic, especially for his size, quick and pass pro, slides well, great fit for his own scheme, could play both sides of the line. So I did like him. Yeah,
he's a good talent. And there's once you get past Abraham Lucas and Daniel Fa'alele, he's maybe the next guy behind those guys as the 3rd pure right tackle on the board at that point. I think Tyler Smith, some of these other guys are more all left tackle centric. But I think he might be my 3rd right tackle on the board at that point that I would go with. I got to watch a little more tape on it, but he stood out to me, Brendon, in watching him. Well, cool. Well, we're going to we got an hour and a half in here. We're going to wrap it up on that note. Please hit the like button if you're watching this show here right now. It does help out as well. If you're not already on over to Seahawks Brendon Nelson, type it on into YouTube search. Go over there and subscribe to his channel. He does great work. I'm going to be back over there on Thursday on his end. We'll be talking. We might just go all corner. I don't know if we're going to have transfer safety. There's so many good corners in this draft.
Yeah, we will either go to offense and leave corner for you in 2 weeks, or we will do corner on my channel next week. It just depends.
Yeah, we'll feel it out. We'll surprise you guys. We'll keep you on your toes over here on our end of it. Well, we trudge on through here. So just a few weeks away from the draft. We'll continue to kind of dive into this deeply. Appreciate you guys for watching here on the channel today. Thank you so much. And thank you to Brendon for coming on over here to my side of things. I always appreciate it, man. I love doing this stuff. It's just great to dive into this draft. Somebody else I can dive into this draft stuff with on. So I really do appreciate it on your end of it. And thanks, man. Right. Well, you guys have a great night. Don't you guys never forget, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.